Hope everyone is doing well out there and staying safe. This is crazy times we're in for sure. So, we did this last week. We did a live and, had a lot of comments. One is answer the questions faster. So we're definitely going to do that. But, a lot of things happening, right now out there. I just saw that South Carolina shut down all of its lakes and, as far as public accesses and things like that, because people were not adhering to the regulations. So, the boys and I have fished a little bit this week. We've tried to be real smart about it. We've left home, we fished here just close, and we're quarantined in the house. So we're, just out on the lake together. So, these big raft ups and things like that down south in Florida where it's warm, that's not going to help anybody. So hopefully, people don't ruin it for those of us that want to, be able to still get outdoors and things like that out in the water. So I want to say a big thanks to all the healthcare workers, the doctors, the hospitals, all the people on the front lines right now battling this virus. And, all the truck drivers, everybody, the grocery store, people stocking shelves and things like that. This is like something of epic proportions and that, you won't see in several lifetimes, hopefully. So thanks everybody, that's out there working hard to, to help get us all back to normal. So we're gonna have some fun tonight. We got some great giveaways. I've got some $50 Bass Pro gift cards. I've got some Oakley Prism sunglasses. I've got some TH Marine Wave Away for your depth finder screens and sunglasses. Got a few books. I've got a 6-pack of Thunder Crickets, Straight King Thunder Crickets we're going to give away. We've got a lot of cool stuff. Got a Yeti KVD cup. And, we just want to answer a lot of fishing questions and hopefully for the time when you can get out in the water to get some more bass in the boat. So let's start off and knock it off. Nick, you got any? The boys are here again helping, answering questions,
Yep.
Reading questions off. So we're going to start right into it.
I got one for you right away.
Yep.
What 3 rods, length, and action are a must on your boat at all times?
Awesome. So 3 rods that I have to have all the time. So you have to have one spinning rod. I like a 7-2, medium action, something with an extra fast tip. It's going to be a rod that I use for shaky head, drop shot, Nico rig, just about anything. That's one you have to have. You're probably going to have it spooled with 10-pound braid and, an 8-pound fluorocarbon leader. I'm also going to have a 610 medium heavy action casting rod. I like something with a faster gear ratio in it. That's what I'm going to use for jerk bait. It's a great topwater rod. It's a perfect spinner bait rod for around tight cover and bushes and things like that. When you need to make accurate casts, I could, skip jigs on boat docks if I had to. Medium heavy action is going to be able to give me the most versatility. Then the other rod is going to be like a 7-4, medium heavy to heavy pitching type rod, because you got to have one heavy outfit too. But, just like a golfer, you got to have a lot of clubs in your bag. A bass fisherman is the same way. But with those 3 rods, I can do a lot of things. So good question. Next one, Nick.
I got one, Dan.
Okay.
Hello from Kalamazoo. What is your favorite lake to fish in Michigan?
What's my favorite lake in Michigan to fish?
Yeah.
I think it's Lake St. Clair, and I think it's because it's so diverse. It's a great smallmouth fishery. I think the best on the planet, and it's just one of those that no matter what time of the year, they're biting there right now. So even with it cold as it is up here, all spring, all summer, until the ice gets on it in the fall, it's hard to beat. Nick?
How deep are the bass this time of year in the South?
Well, in the South, it's all about water temperature and the spawn. So, most areas now, it's getting pretty warm down there and the fish are moving up and they're actually spawning, and have been in a lot of places for a while. Where I live here in Michigan, the water temperature is still in the 40s. I fished the other day and it was 39 degrees. So we've got a while to wait yet, but it's really about the moon phase and the water temperature that triggers the largemouth spawn especially. So, I'm really looking for when that water temperature gets in the 60s, and anytime you have a full moon, it really doesn't even matter what the water temperature is. They're going to be shallow. I see it up here. Even when the water's in the 40s like it is, on each full moon, you'll see a bunch of fish real shallow. And the type of lake matters too. So, a lot of these shallow vegetated lakes like we have here in Florida, I mean, it happens a lot quicker than a deep, clear, rocky lake, things like that. So it's time of the year, water temperature, but the moon is a big influencer too.
I got one for you, Dad.
Yep.
Hold on. If you and Zona could team fish for one tournament on any lake in the country, where would you go?
We would probably, where would we want to go? We'd want to go to Menderchuck. I would say we had a pretty strong day there the last time out.
Here's one, Dad. What conditions make change from a 1.5 to a 2.5 KVD square bill?
That's a really good question. So the difference in the KVD square bills in the different sizes is really about the profile. When I'm targeting bigger fish and times of the year when the forage is bigger is when I want to use the bigger bodies, go to a 2.5 or a 4.0 or even the 8.0. So around the spawn is the time that, and post spawn is the time that I like to throw bigger square bills. So, right now, early season, without a doubt, my favorite is a 1.5. It is a great cold water bait. Catching a lot of fish on it now. I was out this weekend and seeing a lot of the people on the lake, and several guys that I saw just happened to fish by. They're like, hey, I'm catching them on your bait. I'm catching them on a KVD 1.5. And the water temperature's in the low 40s up here. So that's a dynamite bait. But as the water warms up, that's when the bigger square bills really shine.
Here's one, Dad. Braid or fluorocarbon?
Well, I use braid and fluoro both, and a lot of times a combo of both. So it just really depends on the technique and where the strength of the line or the capabilities of the line are really going to help you shine. So, braided line is really good because it's low stretch, but it is visible. You can see it. Heavy vegetation, throwing a frog in the slop and the pads, even just around any heavy cover. I'm always going to use braid. I love a swim jig with braid for the same reasons. In real clear water and open areas, though, that's where fluoro really shines. The thing about fluoro is it doesn't reflect light. It allows the light to transmit right through it. So the fish have a really hard time seeing it. So it's a lot better, for line sensitive or highly pressured fish to use fluoro. One of the other things about fluoro is that it sinks. So for your bottom baits, jigs, tubes, drop shots, Carolina rig, you're gonna get a better direct line to it because that line sinks and it gives you really good sensitivity too. Fluorocarbon's real abrasion resistant, so it's a real game changer. I really almost never throw just straight mono anymore. So the only thing I use mono for anymore is on my poppers, top waters and things like that. In open water, just because it's buoyant. If you use fluorocarbon, it's going to sink. So I know that's kind of a long answer, but it's a really good question.
Here's another one, Dad. KVD and Sherry's cookbook. When do we get to see the recipes?
It's really probably going to be KVD, Sherry, and Jackson and Nicholas's cookbook. So one thing we love to do is cook. And as you travel around, you get a lot of recipes. We've got a lot of things in the hopper, and definitely something that is in the future in our plans for sure is to put out some either some cooking tips online like this, or definitely in a cookbook form.
And now,
All right, go ahead.
here's another one. Do female smallmouth bass spend less time on the spawning bed than female largemouth?
Neither of them spend much time on a spawning bed, to be honest with you. I've seen that a lot of times in Florida and places where you're sight fishing, and you'll see the big fish move in. Okeechobee's notorious for this. I mean, the big ones are there one day, and the next day they're gone. I mean, they come in, spawn, and get out. And smallmouth are pretty much the same. The males stay much longer. I think that'd be a better question is, does a male largemouth or does a male smallmouth protect the nest longer? And I would tell you it would be a smallmouth. They not only protect the nest, but they protect the fry. And they're very aggressive about the way they do it.
I got one, Dad. This guy's driving a truck, and we'll be driving when you do this. However, he's going to watch the replay, and he runs a lot of spinner baits. And he says, however, lately, I'm getting a lot of hits on lipless cranks over what he thinks are holding/bedding areas.
Yep.
And he's wondering if there's a way to decide which one to start out with.
So definitely, you get clues by the time of the year, the water temperature. One of the telltale signs up here in the north, and really a lot of places in the country, is when the leaves start budding and the dogwoods start blooming. The bass are pretty much going to be spawning. And when you're throwing a lipless crankbait and you're fishing through spawning areas, you're only going to get the most aggressive ones and probably the males to try to hit at it, and they're going to miss it a lot. And the same thing really happens with a spinnerbait. So a few years back at the Bassmaster Classic at Lake Catawatchee, I killed them the first day on a spinnerbait, and then the next day they just were nipping it. I mean, those fish went overnight with that warming trend to actually starting the spawning process. And I started using that square bill and really caught them. So that's what I would recommend, is something like the KVD 1.5 instead of the red eye shad, just because it's something that you can keep in the strike zone a little longer. You can stop it and start it, and it's going to kind of float up a little bit. And if the fish start spawning, it's a great way when you're just blind fishing areas to catch a lot of them. They'll come off the bed and chase it. The females that are staging will chase it. So that's a really good question. And we appreciate you being on the road. Obviously, a lot of truckers out there right now doing a lot to keep this country going. So it's Robert Hoffman, and you just won a $50 Bass Pro gift card. So, Bass Pro is still open online. Hopefully you can, put this gift card to use and get the right baits so that you can catch some more fish the next time you get a little bit off. So again, really good question. The spawn is a tricky time of the year for sure. And, hopefully that helps you.
I just watched the 1995 Superstars in the Illinois River in Peoria. How far north did you go?
In the Superstars tournament, that was a long time ago, and the Mississippi was flooded then. The Illinois River was, really backed up, and it was way out into the field. So I think I was running like 90. It was over 90 miles one way to fish, and only ended up catching a handful of fish there. And I mean, the few areas that you could still weren't just flooded out completely, the fish were really stacked in. So it was a fun tournament. It's kind of a neat area and a great concept.
I got one, Dad.
Yep.
How long do you run your Florida braid leader?
That's a good question. So with a fluorocarbon, especially now on spinning rods, gosh, it just eliminates all that twist and stuff like that. So I typically run, a 10-pound braided main line, and then I'll tie an FG knot. And there's a lot of knots you can tie braid to fluoro, but you really want to learn the FG knot. My buddy Jeff Crete is a big saltwater fisherman, and he told me, he said, hands down, there's no better braid to fluoro knot. He's fishing for giant marlin and tuna and things like that with it. And it's tricky to tie. You can go online and see a lot of different videos on how to tie it, but you need to master that knot. And what I like to do is really pick the depth that I'm fishing on that leader length. If I'm fishing shallow around boat docks and things like that, you don't need that long a leader. 8 or 10 foot is plenty. But if I'm, fishing the Great Lakes for smallmouth and I'm thinking about fish that are line shy, I'm going to, double the length of that leader, go out to 20 feet or so like that. Just so you don't have to retie as often, for one thing, but also so you get better distance from that bait of all fluorocarbon to get the right action out of, say, a Ned rig or, your drop shot or things like that. That fluorocarbon is still an advantage, but that braid just gives you so much sensitivity. And it just doesn't twist or tangle like fluorocarbon does on the spinning rod. So it's a really good question.
Here's one, Dad. What happened on fork? What would you have done differently?
That's a good question. So, the first day I really did well on fork. The fish were moving up shallow, and I caught them flipping a Strike King rodent with a really light weight. I was throwing a 3/16 ounce tungsten weight, pitching it with 20-pound fluoro and some of the more scattered grass and things, and with 65 braid into the thick brush and things like that. And I also was throwing a KVD Sexy Frog, skipping it way back into the woods and really hard to get places. I mean, super shallow. I mean, literally 6 or 8 inches deep. And I got a lot of bites. I caught, 40 pounds the first day. And, we had a day off, while the other group fished, and I went back there. And right when I went into my, what I thought was my best little pocket, I noticed that it looked a little bit different. And the water had dropped. Lake Fork, it doesn't have any power generation or anything, but they opened the spillway and they drop the water. I mean, literally an inch to 2 inches is all, but those fish that were real shallow, they just left. I caught one good one to start with, and I caught a handful of, non-scorables, bass that weren't 2 pounds. And, before you know it, a period and a half's wasted. I decided to, go with my backup pattern with a jerkbait, went down lake, did that. I caught, again, 8 non-scorables in the last hour. And in practice, everything you'd catch was, a 3 to 5 pounder. So I'm still scratching my head a little bit about it. It's, part of the deal. I was not sight fishing. The predominant pattern there was sight fishing. There was a limited amount of the area of the lake that was clear enough to do it. And there's so much pressure down there by the locals. It just makes it hard. I mean, I love Lake Fork, but I don't like being there in March during the beginning of the spawn. It's just, the fish are all in the pockets, and there's so many boats down there. It just wasn't a lot of fun for me, for my style.
Here's one, Dan. Favorite Michiana lake on the Michigan-Indiana border?
Without a doubt, I think it's Wawasee. Lake Wawasee is a lake that I fished tournaments on when I was, real young. It's very similar to a lot of our other northern Michigan lakes that have a lot of shallow flats, a lot of sand and grass and edges. It's got largemouth and smallmouth both. And, it gets a lot of pressure, but it's got a lot of fish in it. And it's a shallow lake overall, and it's real diverse. It's got everything from canals, to deep grass, and then a lot of shallow sand flats, boat docks, and things like that. It's a fun lake, especially early in the season.
I got one, Dan. This guy is saying, hold on, let me find the question I was looking at. Are you still doing fundraisers for autism? $1 per pound question?
Yeah, that's a real good question. So, I've got the decal on my boat right behind me. With this going on, we were planning on doing, April, which is Autism Awareness Month, all the tournaments that we'd have. Obviously now, I think we're not going to have any tournaments. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually postpone it and make it, the following month. I think everybody has enough to worry about, and we have a lot of great causes out there, and none being more important right now than this coronavirus. So, we're looking at, with our foundation, of doing some fundraiser things to help the fight of the coronavirus and things that people are dealing with, So we are definitely going to do it. We're just going to push it back just a little bit. Eli Delaney's a good friend of mine, and, he really kind of started this whole thing, and it's taken off across really all the leagues now. I know John Cruz has really been working hard the last couple of years, with bass on that side. And that's how I really kind of got started with it myself. So we're doing it now through FLW, through Major League Fishing and the Bassmaster Tour. And autism awareness is something that probably everybody knows somebody who's been affected by it. So it's another great cause. We're just going to have to postpone it just a little bit this year.
Here, Dan. Wrong question. Can you talk? This guy's saying, is it important to know where the ice fishermen are catching gills when it comes to ice out?
Absolutely. So, for us here in Michigan, we ice fish in the winter, and a lot of people love to bluegill fish. And where the bluegills winter at is the first place you're going to find the bass, right ice out for sure. That's their wintering holes, because the bass are going to be where the food is. The majority of the bass in southern Michigan, here where I live, they feed on bluegills primarily. I mean, they eat whatever, but these lakes are bluegill oriented. So knowing the habits of the bluegill and where they're at is really critical. So as soon as it starts to warm up, if there's a channel or, a shallow or weedy area, those bluegills go there, and that's where the bass go too. I mean, they're both thinking about the spawn and that, but the bluegills are going to go where the first flies and bugs are hatching, and the bass are going to follow.
Here, Dad, here's a good one.
We're going at a lot faster pace today, so I've got some of my, the other thing too, I've got a few of my tackle boxes and stuff here to be able to go. I had a question here earlier that I saw on my website about bladed jigs. So I love bladed jigs. You can see I've got a edge tackle box here loaded. This is one of my favorite edge boxes because when I started the season, and I've thrown a lot of thunder crickets this year, I had 174 of them in this box. So it's got a clear lid. I've got it labeled. It's just a one-handed latch. And I mean, you can flip it any which way you want. You can do whatever, and they stay right there. So you can use, put regular jigs in there, but bladed jigs were always something that were really hard for me to find a way to store, to have them. I've just written right on the box. I got, my 1/2 ounce, my 3/8 ounce, and then I've got a row of 3/4 ounce over here and one of 5/8. So I mainly use, I use a lot of 3/8 and 1/2 ounce, but I do like the 5/8 and the 3/4 ounce size too. So, and we're actually going to give a 6-pack of thunder crickets away tonight. So that's something that if you haven't figured out a good way for your bladed jigs, you got to check out this Edge bladed jig box.
I got one for you, Dad.
Okay.
You got any new rods in the works from Lew's?
I have a whole series of rods and reels coming from Lew's. We've been fishing with them. I've got a stack of them here. Nick's grabbing a couple of them right now. There's some spinning rods right here. It is a awesome thing to be able to work with the engineers that I'm working with there. We're really focusing on some really explicit actions, a lot of, finesse type things and spinning rods that have really fast tapers to them. There are a lot of different lengths. We've got a composite series of cranking rods coming, and I'm just really dialing in all the action. So hand me a couple of them, Nick. No, this is right here. So I've got, different jig rods. You can see they just got little labels on them right there of what they are. So these are all the prototypes. We're really focused on getting the proper handle length for comfort, but really about the actions. And the other thing is we're trying to get these rods that are light, they're super sensitive, they're going to be strong, and they're really going to be a great value too. So we're introducing these at ICAST coming up this summer. Here's one of my new cranking rods right here. This is just a 7-footer, and I've got a BB1 Pro on here. That's a great cranking reel. But yeah, we have this whole series coming out. Not sure exactly how many models there are, but I think you'll be really, really impressed when you pick this rod up and then you see the price tags coming on too. We've got reels to match, so it's going to be pretty cool. Like I say, I've been fishing with them the whole season so far. Been working on it. I just got my next round of prototypes really just a week ago. So it's been a fun project and something that I think you're going to really like when you see them.
Okay, so here's one, Dad. What advice do you have for a beginning tournament angler, and where do you see professional bass fishing headed in the future?
Oh man, there's so many things to learn as a tournament angler. I've been doing it, really. I fished my first tournament when I was 14 years old. I'm still doing it now, and I still learn every single time out. So, the more different good anglers that you fish with, the faster your learning curve. And, now with a lot of the high school fishing programs and the college fishing programs, it's really helped. But also because there's a lot of information out there now. I mean, there's YouTube videos and channels. I've done lots of them, learning about new techniques. The information curve is so much faster now. So that's probably the biggest thing to learn. The tough thing is there's no substitute for that time on the water and that decision-making, that experience to know when conditions change, when you leave, when you got to go, and that's the difference on any tournament and any tournament circuit and at any level. So it's all about what you've got up here and those decisions you make on the water.
Here's one, Dad.
Okay.
This is from the recent hit series King Tiger on Netflix.
Tiger King.
Team Joe or Team Carol?
Oh my gosh. I watched a little bit of this the other day, and I am just dumbfounded. Of course, here I am sitting on a live Facebook talking to people about fishing, but that's a crazy. I'm going to leave that one alone.
All right, I got one, Dan. Do you use different knots when you're using fluorocarbon or braid, or does it vary by bait?
I pretty much tie a Palomar knot for most everything. I use an FG knot to tie 2 lines together. I'll use a regular, on some of my top waters and that where I want a knot that sticks straight out like on a popper. I'll use a regular improved clinch knot, things like that. But a Palomar knot is super fast, it's super easy, and it's super strong. Works great on braid or fluoro, or at least what I use. You know, I mean, I use the Bass Pro XPS fluorocarbon, and I've never had any problem with knots on it at all. So it's really what you're comfortable with. There's several good knots out there, but it's pretty hard to beat a Palomar for speed and strength.
Do you have any tips for fishing? Like now in Southwest Michigan, I fish the lakes, but I'm struggling.
Yeah, so right now it is a challenging time because we have a lot of diverse lakes in Michigan, and I know there's people watching probably all over the country and fish are in all stages, but up here it's still cold. The water temperature is still in the mid 40s for a high for the most part, and a lot of the bass in these deeper lakes are still in their wintering areas, and then in some of these shallower weedy lakes they're right up there super shallow. So it really is about the water clarity. I love to fish a jerkbait, a suspending jerkbait early season. It's one of the first baits that if I'm fishing a clear water lake that has some depth to it, that I can catch fish on. I'm going to fish it along some of the weed edges, transition zones, drops, and things like that, to catch fish. If I've got a lot of shallower flats with scattered vegetation, a red-eye shad is hard to beat, but just think, the water's cold, slow it down a little bit, longer pauses on your jerkbait, let your red-eye shad, fall more often. If I'm fishing these deep, clear, sandier lakes, a lot of the smallmouth lakes, man, it is hard to beat a rage swimmer, just on a lead head. I'll, use a quarter, 3/8, 5/16 ounce, half ounce size, and just swim it slowly along some of these deeper sand edges. And then a Ned rig too, a small tube, a 2.75 straight king tube, or a Ned rig is really hard to beat for the early season fish. They like the bait down on the bottom when it's cold like that on those clean bottom areas. So it's just about being slow. And when you do get a bite, really concentrate on that area because they're never alone. You're not going to just catch one here, one there. You're going to find groups of fish. So, and we got another winner. So
That
question was from Jan Veal, and she's going to win a KVD Bass Strategies book.
All right, Dad, I got one. Michigan angler asking what you find more beneficial, talons or Ultrex, if you had to choose one.
If I had to choose between my talons and Ultrex, and thank God that I don't have to, because they both really have their advantages, but I would tell you that the Ultrex, because I fish so much here in Michigan, in these smallmouth lakes, offshore and that, and you get out there in the wind, you hit the spot lock and you can stay locked down. The other thing is just how awesome the Ultrex steers. It's an unbelievable trolling motor. It's proven. They're so reliable. They just really make, I noticed the boys here that are here, the first time they used an Ultrex on their boat, they were twice as good at their boat control because it steers so much easier. It's so much more responsive. And then if they ever have to sit down and retie, you can just hit spot lock. So my setup is the way that it is, and you can see the 8-foot talons right there behind me, just for that reason. So if I'm fishing open water and I want to spot lock on a spot, I can sit out there in the waves, let the trolling motor hold the boat in place. I can run to the back deck. I can fish my jerk bait. I can pull my red-eye shad. I can do whatever I need, and those talons are the same height as my Mercury Pro XS. So they're not in the way for a lot of those techniques. If I had taller talons, they get in your way if you're trying to work a bait. So if I get in shallow, though, 2 talons, 8-footers like that, I can peg that boat and it just doesn't, it just doesn't even turn. And that's what I like about talons is the poles go straight down and they just really lock you in place. So, it's a great system. Humminbird and Minn Kota call it the one boat network. And when you have, your electronics, your Ultrex, and your talons all working together with Lake Master mapping, it's a deadly piece of equipment. And when we added 360 mega imaging this year, it just took it to a whole nother level. So it's scary how good your boat control is with this technology, and just how efficient you are at finding fish, or how I'm just amazed at what I'm seeing on this Mega 360.
Okay, so here's one, Dad. Zona loves the KVD siren color for drop shotting and beds. Do you agree?
Yeah. So one of the things about Chartreuse Pearl, we call it Siren in the Strike King line, is it's super visible. So smallmouth especially are really they're aggressive around the spawn. I mean, whether they're on beds or they're pre-spawn or post-spawn. So it's a great color all the time. The other key thing is you can see it. So you can be out there, you can be watching your bait and see that chartreuse, and then all of a sudden it just disappears. Well, you better set the hook because it just got sucked in. And that's the beauty of that color that you just don't even see. I mean, it's more visible than white or bubble gum or methylate or any of those other colors like that. And it's a really, really effective color. And it's not only good for just the spawn too. I mean, there's a lot of other times a year that that color, the visibility of that color can be really good, especially in stained water. It's a great color on trailers for spinner baits, thunder crickets, things like that as well.
Here's another one, Dan. Why use the Z21 versus the Z20 if you compare both with this 250?
So I like the Z21 for the extra storage, the extra length, the extra weight. I mean, it's just an incredible ride in big water. It's just that much bigger. I've been doing this a long time. I've fished a lot of rough water, and to me, bigger is better. The one time that I really wish that I have a smaller boat is, if you're fishing really tight around a lot of boat docks or you're in a lot of timber or things like that, that's where it's really nice. I also have a Z19 that we use as a camera boat. That's what the boys use for their fishing too. And it's amazing. You put an Ultrex on a Z19, it flies. I mean, it is so maneuverable and it's so fishable that I do see the benefits of smaller boats. But for the water that I fish on these big lakes around the country, I'll stick with my Z21.
I got one, Dad. This is a little throwback. You got to think about this one. What tournament win stands out the most or most memorable to you that you've won?
I've had a lot of great ones over the years, for sure. There's something to be said for your first one. When I won at Lake Lanier, throwing a spinner bait, kind of bucking the norm when everybody else was fishing for spotted bass. That was pretty cool. I've had some recent ones too, like winning Toledo Bend with a 10XD. That was a good one. There really wasn't any other anglers that found that pattern or were fishing the way that I was until they saw how it happened. So, those are always really good ones, but you just never know when your next one's going to be. So I've learned to really appreciate all of them. And I've been fortunate to have a really good career and be able to have a lot of success in tournaments. So I've enjoyed them all. It's hard to pick them. I mean, I think back to smallmouth tournaments at Thousand Islands that I've won and different places, all the way back to club tournaments, in my original days with Cal Valley Bass Club. That was pretty dang meaningful even then.
Here's one, Dan. Hey, KVD, I live in Bay City, Michigan. Do you fish the Saginaw Bay? If so, have you fished around the Charity Islands?
So I fished Saginaw Bay really most of my adult life, and I've seen it change a lot. In the early years when I was in my teens, we fished some big tournaments over there. Our equipment wasn't near as good. And that's a rough, dangerous place to be, especially in a tournament if you're going to make a long run. So, the water was high then. There was a lot of cattails, a lot of great largemouth fishing, and almost no smallmouth. So it's changed a lot now. The Charity Islands and that, out in the bay, it's zebra mussels have cleared up. There's a lot of smallmouth, but the water up here is super high in the whole Great Lakes. So the largemouth have really come back, and Saginaw Bay is a whole different fishery again. So these fish grow a lot faster in these shallow bays like Saginaw Bay and Lake St. Clair than most people would realize up north. So it's really coming on again, and that fishery is coming back a lot.
Here's one, Dan. How do you explain how you use electronic and go between side imaging to down imaging to 360? Okay,
so electronics are always a hot button topic, and it's really disappointing because this year, like at my brother's in-store, they always have it at Easter. One of the things we have there is we get a ton of manufacturer support, and all the reps come in, and you can actually be there with the guys, and we've got demo units set up, and you can learn and see screenshots of side imaging, 360 mega imaging. You can see the differences between down imaging and 2D sonar and all that. And so we do that. So unfortunately, with this coronavirus, they've had to cancel that. they still are running a lot of those specials and things like that, on these new electronics. But I like to use it all, and that's the great thing that I think that Humminbird and Minn Kota have as an advantage, is that all of this technology, it networks together. So, the Lake Master map, with my Ultrex, I can use it to follow a contour line. If I want to stay on the 17-foot contour line at Gull Lake, I can do that, or if I'm at Lake St. Clair and I want to navigate to one of my waypoints that's 300 yards away and sit down and tie a new FG knot, I can do that with the trolling motor. And if I'm sitting at the console, I can actually have my trolling motor down in the front and have the 360, projected on that screen there, or I can be there side imaging and seeing everything there to both sides and using down imaging beneath me. So one of the big things is just how much clearer side imaging and down imaging, and now this new Mega 360 is. I mean, it draws the picture in such detail that you can see a tree and all the limbs and see the fish sitting in there. You can see a school of bait fish and you can see the individual shad and you can see a bass following them. I mean, they're really crazy how good they are. You can see bluegill beds and see which ones have a bluegill sitting in them. It's really, really awesome. The one thing that it doesn't do, though, is tell you exactly what to throw or what they're going to bite on. But it does take a lot of the guesswork out of it, and it's just amazing what technology they have. So I feel really fortunate to have what I think are the best electronics available.
Here's one, Dan. What was the Pittsburgh Classic, the 3 most difficult days of fishing you ever experienced?
Actually, I think I've fished tougher tournaments than that Classic. The greatest thing about that one is that I ended up winning. It was one of the lowest weights, but we had a super tough tournament one time on the Harris chain in the spring where it was really hard, even to catch anything. And I've had other tournaments that I've really struggled in. So, but that's the most memorable tough tournament that I've ever fished for sure.
I got one. Do you think the rising water of Lake Erie the last few years and continuous rising water around the Great Lakes is going to affect future spawns?
So it definitely has. The Great Lakes for sure. I've fished them my whole life, and this high water is really been a boom for the fishing. It does affect. The lakes. It changes spawning areas. It changes how fast they warm up. And it's added a lot more habitat. So really, I've seen the populations expand on just about every Great Lakes fishery out there because of it. There's just so much more habitat now. You go to a lot of the lakes on the west side of Lake Michigan, Muskegon Lake, the Grand River, and that. They've almost doubled in acreage. Places like the Grand River especially. It's almost doubled the surface acres that's there. There's all this flooded cover, a lot of new vegetation, and the population has expanded with it. But the same is true, even on the big water for smallmouth. That it's changed a lot of these spawning flats and things like that, for them. But I've seen the population, or I believe the population's increasing, and the fishing's the best it's ever been in my lifetime.
Here's one, Dan. If you could only have 2 rods and 2 baits to fish with in Michigan,
dog's trying to go out the door.
What would you have and where would you go?
If I only had 2 baits to fish, well, thank God I got tackle boxes. 2 rods, 2 baits. I have a lot of different options. You don't have to do that, but I'm a power fisherman for sure, and I like to fish fast and cover water. So I'd have, a 610 medium heavy action bait caster with a spinnerbait, because I love a spinnerbait. It's something I can fish at all depth levels. Yeah, there's Lola. I can fish it at all depth levels and lots of different cover and boat docks and things like that. And I'd also have to have a spinning rod with a tube. So a lot of people would say a jig would be their one bait. But I love a tube bait. It's really versatile. You can fish it fast. You can fish it deep, shallow. You can fish it Texas rig. It's really, really a versatile bait. I still carry a ton of tubes in my boat for all types of fishing, from flipping to, finesse fishing to everything. So spinning rod with a tube, bait caster with a spinnerbait.
You wrote 2 books. Which one would you recommend for beginners? And that's the winner of the book. Of the book.
So they've got a really good question, and they're going to win one of my Bass Strategies books. And this one is definitely, Louis Stoughton and I wrote this quite some time ago, and it's my philosophies on basically how, the seasonal patterns and how to deal with fluctuating conditions, water levels, time of the year, all those things like that. And it's still the model that I follow every single day, out in the water to start my game plan. So it's a really good question, and you're going to get a copy.
Here's one, Dad. Favorite thing to cook on the Traeger?
Well, my favorite thing to cook on a Traeger is a brisket. The challenging part about that is it takes like 16 hours to cook a brisket on there and do it right. But it is unbelievable when it comes off. The easiest favorite thing is what we had today is chicken wings or chicken legs. I mean, it's just so simple because when you put set the temperature on the Traeger, it just stays exactly where you put it unless you run out of pellets. And it's just so simple and easy, and it cooks so perfect that everything is good. It's an amazing grill. They don't pay me or anything like that to do it. I just love a Traeger. My dad's had one for a while, and whether it's a pork tenderloin or chicken or beef or steaks or burgers or anything, you get great, flavor from the wood, and it's just easy. The temperature control is just so precise.
I got one, Dad.
Yep.
When do you start going away from craw pattern crankbaits and more towards shad colors?
That's a really good question. In the spring, definitely is the time when we use a lot of crawfish patterns. And then other than that is if you're on a fishery that has a lot of crawfish to begin with. I won a tournament a couple of years ago on Grand Lake, and we were fishing much later in the year than most people would think about using a crawfish crankbait. But the whole lake is rocky, and it has lots of crayfish in it. Of course, it has a lot of shad too. But with the fish, focused around the spawn still, a lot of them, just moving up, a lot of pre-spawners, a lot of fish moving up to bed. A crawfish colored crankbait was the ticket over a shad bait. And part of that's water clarity, and part of that is the terrain type there. So, the most important thing is the forage base and what the fish are focused on. So if you know that they're focused on shad, it's hard to beat shad patterns. If you know they're focused on crawfish or bluegill, that's going to trump everything, even water clarity for that matter. So, there's never no exact right or wrong in picking colors, but there's a lot of things that you look at in that sense. We developed an app, myself and another group of anglers, called Bass Force. And it really does that. It tells you, you just input all the detailed conditions, and it tells you exactly what bait I would throw, or Aaron Martins or Jason Christie or Edwin Evers or, any of the other guys that are on there. It's going to give you their picks for those conditions, that type of cover, time of the year, water temperature, all of those things, and tell you what lures that are our go-tos. There's never a perfect one right answer. But, day in, day out, the experience that, myself and this other group of guys has, it's pretty solid. It's amazing how similar we are in our picks, and then sometimes how different we are.
I got one, Dad. 4-bladed prop or 3-bladed prop on your outboard?
So I run a Z21, and I've got a 3-blade 23 pitch, on mine, and that's the main reason for that is because this new Mercury Pro XS has so much low end torque that I don't need a 4-blade like I used to get out of the hole or to give me the lift, when we're running, top end. So a 3-blade Fury is hard to beat on any of these new 4-stroke Mercuries for sure. And if you're running, something else other than that, you may think about that, but I basically don't have any need for a 4-blade or a 5-blade prop anymore because of that. Now we've got plugs, so I can plug those vents up for running in big water. And this engine has so much more power, even in 8 or 10 footers, to be able to power through it and never blow out. That 23 works awesome. Even through the heat of the year. This time of the year, I could definitely run a 24, but it really didn't change my speed on my particular rig. It all depends on how you load the boat and your balance. But with an Atlas hydraulic jack plate like this, that 23 it really runs good. I run, basically loaded, full gas and everything like that. I can run about 70 mile an hour, and I carry a lot of stuff in mine. So it's a great setup. I pop up just lickety split like that, and I'm gone, and it really works well for me.
Here's one, Dad. Will there be a left-handed reel from Lewis in your lineup?
And when will it be?
So that's a really good question from you, Jackson. Being a lefty, he's waiting for the left-handed reels, and yes, we're going to do both right and left hand. There's a ton of left-handed anglers out there, and they're going to be available. Again, with this coronavirus, things have changed a lot in the manufacturing world. So we're launching them at ICAST. They're already, I've fished them. We've prototyped them. Our rods are basically all done. They're just in the process of starting to, finalize the cosmetics and to build them. So should be this summer. Should be available this summer.
Here's one, Dad.
I got one. What lens color do you use, and when do you use them for your shades?
So that's a really good question. One of the most important things that you can do is have the right sunglasses for fishing. I've been using Oakley, polarized optics for a long time. There's a lot of different sunglasses out there, and I'm sure there's a lot of good ones. But the technology that goes into an Oakley lens is like no other. Optically, they're 99.9% perfect every time, even with a curved polarized lens. And their prism technology really gives you the ability to choose the exact right color for the condition. So, in low light, I like something that's lighter colored, light amber, you want something yellowish, but they have so many different options that you can kind of pick between them. And they've got shallow water prism, they've got deep water prism. They've got a lot of different colors available. And most importantly is fit. So you want to have something that really fits tight and blocks the sun on the sides. This is a new pair of Oakley Cliftons, which is a really unique pair. It's got a little side shield you can see on them. They've got a built-in lanyard to it. And I think these are Prism tungstens, if I'm not mistaken. And we're actually giving them away. This is a tungsten prism. This is one of my favorites. So again, when you're going down the lake, you don't get any of that wind and you don't get that side light, and it really helps you see. This is a brand new style that they just came out with, and it's great for bass fishing. So I like to carry different options with me, and I'll just look in the water. If I'm looking at sandy bottom or weeds or looking for sightfish, I'll try a couple of different lens tints until I find the one that works best under those exact conditions. But day in, day out, it's really hard to beat the tungsten or the shallow water prism that Oakley makes. If I'm fishing offshore, saltwater net, that's where they make that deep water prism. But that technology really cuts the glare, and they're just so clear. You don't get any headaches or anything from wearing them, and you can find a frame that fits your face perfect.
Here's one, Dad. One lure in the entire world. What does KVD choose?
One lure in the entire world? Gosh, I would, again, thank God I don't have to do that. But for a lot of people, it would be without a doubt a jig because it's so versatile. But I like a tube. I said that earlier. I love spinnerbait. That's the hardest choice I would ever have to make.
Here's one, Dan. Having an issue with line twisting on spinning reels?
Yep.
Is there a certain line to help stop this?
So the most important thing on a spinning reel, and let me grab one reel. When you're winding the line, it's really important that you do it properly. So yeah, just grab any one of those spinning rods, Nick, right there. That one right there, perfect. And then I've got a spool of fluoro right in the floor of the boat right there. So when you're using a spinning rod, when you turn the handle, you'll see that the rotor goes clockwise. So when you're going to wind the line on, have it coming off, have your spool just sitting on the counter and have it coming off counterclockwise. That way, if you think about it, it's going on the same way as it's coming off, and you won't get any twist. Inherently, when you're fishing, so again, just so you understand that, again, the rotor on, this is a Lew's custom speed spin, and I've got a spool right here. I want this coming off counterclockwise because this turns clockwise when I'm winding it on. And then I'll use some line conditioner, that KVD line and lure, spray that right on there. That'll help a lot with twists. But inherently, when you're fishing a spinning rod like this and you have a bait, like right here, I got a Ned rig tied on. When you cast it out, it's spinning in the air. If you reel it real fast, it may spin. So you're still going to get some line twists so you can't stop it completely. One of the best things, if you really are having a ton of problems with it, is to use braided line and then just use a fluorocarbon leader. The braid just isn't near as susceptible to the twist and really makes a big difference. But I'm still a big fan for a lot of techniques, just like this Ned rig, early spring, things like that, of using straight fluoro. So that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to wind it on like that. I'm going to use that KVD line and lure conditioner, just spray it on the spool after you fill it. Let it dry on there, and you can hit it a couple times during the day. It really makes a big difference in the amount of twists and tangles and just how well your spinning rod's going to cast.
I got a good one, Dad.
Yep.
So this is about the Hydra Wave, but it's not the KVD one. At least I don't think it is. Didn't say it. What setting on your Hydra Wave do you use for smallmouth?
So there's a lot of, I used the Hydra Wave for a long time for smallmouths, just using the original settings like the power pattern. Still one of my favorites for any of those windy, blustery days. But the finesse patterns, when we developed, we've got special sound patterns built into the KVD version of the Hydra Wave, which is, it's available at Bass Pro. And, we've got the Crawfish sounds there, but also, the finesse and the ultra finesse are really kind of geared with a lot of the smallmouth forward sounds and for those, conditions when you have no wind, clear water and high bright sky. So, I run that pattern at Table Rock on those conditions, but I also run that at Lake St. Clair underneath those conditions. The big thing to remember is not only the sound pattern, but to run it on a delay and a longer delay under those tough conditions like that too. So, I may run it with a 60-second delay and keep the volume real low and run that ultra finesse, sound pattern so that there's a lot of quiet time and it's just real subtle for those types of conditions.
Here's one, Dan. What is your favorite activity outside of fishing?
My favorite thing to do is different stuff with the family. We do a lot of pontooning. You think when you're fishing, that's all you want to do is get away from it, but we like the water. So we spend a lot of time in the summers on the pontoon. I love to hunt, like to deer hunt. Turkey season's just coming around the corner right here in Michigan. There's a lot of birds gobbling and strutting. I like to be outdoors. We've been shed hunting a little bit this week. We'll get some work done at the property. I like to manage the land. We do everything from timber management to planting food plots and things like that. So, but my favorite thing to do is definitely be out there. We've got a Regency pontoon boat out there in the summer with the boys and friends, and we'll fish, we tube, we do all kinds of water sports, hang out, and have a good time. So hopefully we can get back to that, real soon this summer after we get through this virus.
What is your best year-round bait?
One of the best baits that I have there's just almost no fishery that I go to, no time of the year that I don't want to use it, is a KVD 1.5 square bill. It's such a versatile bait. It just catches them under, cold water, warm water, dirty water, clear water. It's a versatile bait, but it isn't the perfect tool for everything. The biggest thing about picking baits is you want to think of them as tools and pick the best tool for the type of cover and the conditions that you have there. You don't want to get stuck on having a favorite. You want to just, you want to pick the right bait for the right conditions.
I got one, Dad.
Heading out the door.
When do you use scent and or dyes?
So scent is something that is really important in, techniques and things like that on slower moving bait. So, I use, a scent called fish sticks. They make it in crawfish and shad. It basically looks like a little bottle of chapstick, but I promise you, if you mistake it for your chapstick, you're going to be really disappointed because it's super concentrated crawfish or super concentrated shad. And what I like about it is it really stays on a bait real well. So, I'll put it on, your jigs and tubes and things like that, but you can put it on a crankbait and things like that. But, a faster moving bait like a spinnerbait or a crankbait, they're not going to smell it and come up and hit it. And then dye, I like the Spike It spray dye. I'll a lot of times make a chartreuse tail or add orange to it. They got a little marker that works real good too. I don't like the dipping dyes because I've had problems before. I've spilled them in the boat, and you don't want to spill them on your carpet.
Here's one more. Here's one. Did you have a fishing hero growing up?
Yeah, I had a bunch of them. I really grew up watching a lot of the old school television shows. When I was a kid, Virgil Ward, and most people probably don't remember that name, but he had a show on called Championship Fishing. And, back then we only had 3 channels, and every Sunday that would come on after church. And it was something that I learned a lot about. It's where I learned about one of my favorite lures, a spinnerbait, a Bass Buster beetle spin. I saw on his show. I took it out and fished ponds and little lakes and stuff that I could ride my bike to and caught a lot of fish. So, he's one of my early ones, but, I think of all the guys that were pioneers, the Rick Lunds and Danny Brower and, Roland Martin and Jimmy Houston and Bill Dance and Larry Nixon, a lot of the guys that grew up and mentored me to start out with. I still think that there's so many good people in our industry, and that's what's unique about our sport compared to a lot of them is the quality of the people. So I'm fortunate to know a lot of them and call a lot of my friends.
I got one, Dan. This one's going to win the Yeti Cup, by the way.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to give away a KVD Yeti Cup. They work awesome. It's the one sponsor product I use every single day.
All right. This question's from Andy Poisel. What are your most essential non-fishing related items you keep in your boat at all times?
The most essential non-fishing items I keep in my boat. Oh, man. I've got a lot of them. I've got tools. I've got different things like that. You got to have dude wipes for sure. I've got non-essential fishing items. I have all kinds. If I start digging through my boat, I've got all kinds of them. I do carry, I carry that Yeti cup all the time. It keeps ice forever. The coolers are the same way. I carry one of those with me all the time. But as far as things essential that you have to have, it's never essential until you absolutely need it. So, I carry spare trolling motor props and parts and, extra boat prop. I guess those are all fishing items though. So I guess it'd have to be my Yeti.
I got one, Dan. This is going to be a little ballpark question. Tell us one of your favorite stories or memories of fishing with your life mate, Mark Summer.
One of my favorite stories. Oh, probably one of the most memorable days we had was a couple years ago. We did a Zona Live on Mender Chuck, and gosh, it was just one of those days where the weather and the conditions just lined up, and we probably caught the biggest 5 bass stringer I've ever seen in Michigan that day, and we happened to do it not only on camera, but live on camera. But a lot of the times that we fish together, it's, when we get together in the summer, we'll go pontooning, we vacation together a lot up north, and we'll smallmouth fish and do different things like that. What I like to do with Mark is we'll go and take off and just go lake hopping. We'll go and we'll go and hit like 3 different lakes in a day, go exploring, things like that. So we've had a lot of great times together. Both of our boys were very premature when they were born, and that was our bond from the beginning. And, we've been together a long time. I'm sure we got a lot more great memories to make. So hopefully we can get back on the water soon after this whole virus thing clears up.
If you could, here you go. Thoughts on kayak fishing, and would you ever consider trying it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got my parents have a place on a small lake, and we've got kayaks there, and it's a lot of fun. I've got really two nephews that are very big into it, very serious about it. One of them fishes all over in tournaments, and now these kayaks are amazing how rigged out they have them with electronics and all the technology, Hydra Waves and everything on them. So it allows you access to a lot of places that you can't normally get. And that's one of the things that I think is cool about it. Some of the tournaments they have on these big giant bodies of water don't make a lot of sense to me, but it's places where it's tough access and things like that, that kayak fishing can be really, really incredible. So, a lot of these deltas, places like the Grand River, a lot of these marsh areas and stuff like that, that's where it really pays to have a kayak.
Okay. When cranking, do you see a difference in glass versus graphite? This is you.
Yeah. So for crankbaits, about using a glass rod or a graphite rod, Lola, she's ready to be done. But what I try to do is I'm like the best of both worlds. So, the composite rods that I use are a mix of glass and graphite. So you get the sensitivity of the graphite, but you get the slower reaction time, that softer way when it deflects off, the way the rod unloads when you deflect it off a stump or a rock. It allows the fish to eat the bait better, and it actually changes the action of your bait too. And plus, when you're fighting a fish, it actually acts as a better shock absorber. The fish jumps, it keeps your line tight. You're going to land a lot more fish with it. So to me, for cranking, I'm going to use a composite rod all the time. When you match that with a low stretch line like fluorocarbon, it really is the perfect combination for me.
And then what is the best tip you can give to a weekend fisherman in the South? And this is from James Willingsford. He's the winner of the last gift card.
So I got another $50 Bass Pro gift card for James. So tell me that question again. What is
the best tip that you can give to a weekend fisherman in the South?
So the biggest thing, if you get to just fish on the weekend, is follow the weather during the week so you can plan your time on the water. I'm no different. When I'm not fishing tournaments and stuff like that, I've got a lot of things to do. I have limited amount of time for fun fishing. So when I get to be out there, I want to spend it in the most productive areas. So I'm going to watch the weather patterns. So I know that, hey, if it's going to be raining, or if it's sunny, if it's going to be high pressure, low pressure, I know in my mind what potential mood the fish should be in, and I'm prepared when I go out there to know that, hey, I need to be throwing top waters or burning spinner baits, or I need to be finesse fishing. So I'm really going to follow that weather pattern and plan my trip, if I can, to the type of water that's conducive to that type of fishing. If it's going to be tough conditions, post-rental conditions, I know that if I can flip cover or punch mats or I'm going to have to finesse fish, I'm going to get more bites. But if it's windy and cloudy and rainy, and which is a great time to be fishing, I know I can power fish them. I can be rigged for spinner baits and burning red eye shads and crankbaits and things like that, faster moving baits to cover more water with. So I actually like fishing on those nasty days. There's less people out there on the water, and with the equipment I got, it's not a problem to handle the boat or be able to hold in the wind or anything like that. And the fish are actually more active on those types of days too. So, but unfortunately, I don't get to pick them. I go whatever it is, but I just want to plan according to that weather.
I got one, Dan.
Yep.
Any tips for fishing a Nico rig, line, hook type of bait?
So a Nico rig is one of those baits that's really taken the finesse bass fishing world by storm. I typically throw just a straight net ocho, which is a little kind of a stick worm. It's one designed for it. But Strike King makes it's their own little stand-up net head, and it really is a phenomenal design. It's got a really good hook that is light wire, but it's strong, and it's kind of got a unique bend to it, so it really holds the fish on. It's got a good keeper to it, and it makes your Ned stand straight up no matter what you're using. They came out with a whole series of Ned baits. They got a Ned rage bug. They got a Ned cutter worm. They've got a lot of those. And I've caught a lot of fish on Ned rigs like that, but still day in, day out, that Ned Ocho is the best. My big time advice, or the best advice I can give you, is use as light of a head as possible. It just increases the action of that bait. So the lighter that you can get away with for the depth of water that you're fishing with, the more bites you're going to get. I've seen that. So 16th ounce is a go-to. If you're fishing shallow water, don't be throwing a 3/16 ounce up there. Throw the lightest that you can get away with.
Here, Dan.
Yep.
These are going to be some quick questions for the end.
Okay.
Any good stories from fishing at Muskegon Lake?
So I've fished Muskegon Lake my whole life. It's really on a really good upward trend, and it's because of the super high water of the Great Lakes. I've had some incredible days there. Early in my career, the water level was similar to this there, and I've won several tournaments there, just throwing spinnerbaits on the flats. But one of my favorites there, I was fishing with my brother Randy, and we actually fished a tournament out of the Grand River. This was a long time ago. It was a really big tournament out of the Grand River. We ran all the way up to Muskegon Lake, and we caught a 5 bass limit or a 10 fish limit at the time that weighed 39 pounds and change. We just shy of a 4-pound average, and won the tournament by a big margin, and actually was really the tournament record on that lake for a long time. Now the fishing is so much better up there that a 4-pound average is fairly common. So people talk about the good old days. Well, really, because of conservation, a lot of good practices, and Mother Nature with this high water and all the habitat, that the fishing's really never been better.
Are you excited for turkey hunting this season?
I am very excited for turkey hunting. I've got a lot of gobblers in the neighborhood around our property right now. I wake up every morning. You can hear them gobbling on the roost. So it looks like it's gonna be really good. We had a mild winter, so it's been good for the turkeys.
And then the biggest deer you ever shot, like highest scoring.
The highest scoring deer that I ever shot was, this year had to be this year for sure, right? I'm trying to think. That I shot a 180-inch 10-point at the Whoville Ranch. I've killed three others over 170, but this was a mainframe 10 that was 180 or 179 and like 7/8 or something like that. So the Whoville Ranch in Texas. Another one?
This guy's saying he says he sees you get a lot of oil change at your Toyota Metro. Do you do that much? Do you have that much attention on your trolling motor / boat? Whatever except.
So yeah, I do. I'm pretty adamant about keeping my equipment maintained and clean. You'll notice you'll never see my truck dirty on the inside for sure. Sometimes it may take me a day or two to wash it. My wife is fanatical about that, so I take care of my stuff, and I am good about that. So I change my lower unit gear lube often, just because I think it's insurance during tournaments and things like that. I'm going to always try to take care of that kind of stuff. But on your boat, it's not near as you don't have to change your, like on my outboard. I'll change it with this Pro XS now. I just change it once a year, but I'll change the gear lube usually twice a year, a couple times a year, because we put so many hours on it around the country, things like that. But with your trolling motor and that, it's just normal routine little maintenance, a little bit of WD-40 here or there, but you don't really have to change things out. I check my wheel bearings and things like that. So that's a real good question. So
and that person that answered that question, his name is Todd. He won.
Todd,
Yeti Cup.
He's getting a Yeti Cup, KVD Yeti Cup. So
Any more?
And then
we get close to the end.
so somebody wants to ask what gun do you use? What's your turkey gun?
So I've got a Benelli Super Black Eagle 3 in Mossy Oak Bottomland that is just an incredible. More importantly, it's really good duck gun. I like to duck hunt and do a little bit of that too. So to me, it's the perfect gun for both for that. So we've had a real good time answering questions. To me, it's kind of important to be able to get out there. I appreciate all the fan support that I get all the time, and all the well wishes and things like that. It's tough out on the tournament trail away from your family at home, and we're all going through a really challenging time right now. I mean, there's nobody that's not being affected by this virus. So everybody stay safe, be smart, practice social distancing. Get out there outdoors where you can, in the places where you can, and where it's smart and safe. Do it the way we're supposed to, and hopefully we'll be all back on the lake, fishing tournaments and back to life as we knew it before this real soon. So have a great night. And
I got one.
He's got one more question. Always one
A
more.
little funner one. A little more lighter.
A little lighter.
Subject. After a tough day of fishing on the water, what's your favorite go-to beverage?
After a tough day on the water, believe it or not, it is going to be a Busch Light. I've been sponsored by them for a long time. They don't sponsor me directly anymore, but I still enjoy a good Busch Light. Very refreshing. But you can't go wrong. It's good to be responsible once you're off the water, of course. And a lot of people have their beverage. If you're wondering what I'm drinking tonight, it's been Gatorade. So have a great night. Appreciate everybody. We'll do this again soon. Got a few things coming up. With all this extra time, there's a lot of guys doing different things like this. You'll see. I think I'm on Bass Zone later this week. I'm going to be on Strike Kings. I'm going to take over Strike King's site sometime later this week. I think Thursday afternoon too. So it's going to be an interesting time. I'm going to do the best I can to get out on the water as much as I can with the boys. This is a great time for us. Where you just think about family and and things that you can do, and just be safe and be smart. Enjoy it. See you, everybody.